Growing up in Riverdale, a town where Friday night games were sacred and athletic achievement was the highest form of social currency, Alex Mitchell had always felt slightly out of place. As a junior on the track team, he showed promise, enough to earn respect from his peers, but not enough to truly stand out in a community obsessed with sporting excellence. Alex's lean build and natural speed made him well-suited for hurdles, but something about his technique always seemed slightly off, preventing him from reaching his full potential. His parents, both former college athletes themselves, were supportive but pushed him with that particular blend of encouragement and expectation that left Alex constantly feeling like he was falling short. The arrival of coach Ryan Thomas changed everything. When the previous track coach retired mid-season due to health issues, the school brought in Coach Ryan, a former Olympic qualifier with piercing blue eyes and the kind of charisma that commanded attention the moment he walked onto the field. At 32, he was younger than most coaches, with a reputation for transforming mediocre programs into championship contenders. Rumors followed him from his previous position at a prestigious private school 2 counties over. Whispers about why he'd left so suddenly. Murmurs about his intensity with certain athletes. But his credentials were impeccable, and the school board was thrilled to have someone of his caliber taking over their program. From the first practice under Coach Ryan's guidance, Alex felt something shift. The coach's eyes seemed to linger on him during warm-ups, studying his form with an intensity that made Alex's heart race. "Mitchell," he called out during their third practice together, "stay after today. We need to work on your hurdle clearance." The way he said it, not a suggestion but a statement of fact, sent a strange flutter through Alex's stomach. That afternoon, as the rest of the team filed out of practice, Alex remained behind, nervously stretching as he waited for Coach Ryan's instructions. The spring air felt electric, charged with possibility and something else Alex couldn't quite name. Coach Ryan approached, clipboard in hand, his athletic build still impressive years after his competitive career had ended. "Your technique isn't bad," he began, circling Alex slowly, "but you're losing precious milliseconds on every hurdle. Your hips aren't rotating properly." He demonstrated the correct motion, his own body moving with the fluid grace of someone who had perfected every aspect of the sport. "Try again," Coach instructed, positioning himself at the side of the hurdle. Alex took a deep breath, sprinted forward, and cleared the hurdle with what he thought was improved form. Coach Ryan shook his head. "You're still not getting it. Let me show you." And then he was there, directly behind Alex, his chest nearly touching Alex's back. "The problem is here," he said, his hands coming to rest firmly on Alex's hips. "You need to drive through with more purpose." His fingers pressed firmly into Alex's hip bones, guiding them in the motion he wanted to see. Alex felt his breath catch, hyper-aware of the warmth of Coach Ryan's hands through the thin material of his track shorts. Again, Coach Ryan instructed, not removing his hands as Alex began his approach. This time, Coach's hands stayed on his hips through the entire motion, firmly guiding Alex's body into the proper position as he cleared the hurdle. "Better," Coach said, his voice low near Alex's ear. "Much better. You felt the difference, right?" Alex nodded, unable to trust his voice. He had indeed felt a difference, in his technique, yes, but also in himself. Something awakened in that moment of contact, a realization that had been dormant for years. The confusion Alex had felt about himself, about why he never seemed interested in dating the girls his teammates constantly discussed, suddenly clarified in the warmth of Coach Ryan's hands on his hips. Over the next few weeks, these private coaching sessions became routine. Coach Ryan always found reasons why Alex needed additional technique work, and Alex never objected. Each session followed a similar pattern. Alex would attempt the hurdle, Coach would correct him with increasingly hands-on guidance, and Alex would leave practice with a confusing mixture of athletic improvement and emotional turmoil. "Your form is improving dramatically," Coach Ryan told him after a particularly intense session where his hands had lingered longer than necessary on Alex's lower back. "You could really be something special with the right guidance." The praise made Alex glow with pride, but it was the underlying current between them that kept him awake at night, staring at his ceiling and replaying every touch, every glance, every moment when Coach's eyes had held his for a beat too long. At school, Alex found himself watching the clock during classes, counting down the minutes until track practice. His teammates noticed his improvement, clapping him on the back and expressing surprise at his suddenly competitive times. "Whatever coach is doing with you in those private sessions is working," his teammate Jason remarked with a grin. "Maybe I should suck at hurdles too." The comment made Alex flush, wondering if his feelings were somehow visible to others, if the electricity he felt during those coaching sessions somehow radiated from him afterward. Let me explain why this matters. In small towns like Riverdale, coaches aren't just instructors of sport. They're molders of character, surrogate parents, and sometimes the only adults who see potential in kids that others have written off. The power dynamic between coach and athlete is inherently unbalanced, built on trust and authority that creates a uniquely intimate relationship. For someone like Alex, already questioning his identity and place in the world, that relationship becomes even more significant, more formative. As the regional meet approached, Coach Ryan intensified Alex's training. "You have a real shot at qualifying for state," he told Alex during one of their now daily private sessions. "But we need to perfect your form." That day, his coaching became even more hands-on. "Your arms need to be more compact," he explained, his hands sliding from Alex's hips up to his shoulders, then down his arms to position them correctly. "And your core needs to be engaged the entire time." His palm pressed flat against Alex's stomach, fingers splayed across his abs. "Feel that? That tension needs to stay throughout the entire hurdle." Alex felt it, the tension in his core, yes, but also the tension between them, a current that seemed to grow stronger with each practice. When Coach's hand lingered on his stomach, Alex made the decision not to pull away, to lean slightly into the touch instead. He heard Coach Ryan's breath catch, felt a momentary increase in pressure before Coach abruptly stepped back. "Again," he said, his voice slightly rougher than before. From the beginning. That night, Alex couldn't sleep. He replayed the moment over and over, questioning whether he had imagined the response, whether he had crossed a line that would change everything. When his phone lit up with a text at nearly midnight, his heart leaped to his throat. It was from Coach Ryan. "Your form today was excellent. Proud of your progress. Get some rest for tomorrow." The message was professional enough that anyone reading it would see nothing unusual, but Alex stared at it for nearly an hour, analyzing each word, wondering about the motivation behind a text sent so late at night. He finally responded with a simple, "Thanks, Coach. Will do," but sleep remained elusive as his mind raced with possibilities. The next day at practice, something had shifted. Coach Ryan kept his distance during the team drills, focusing his attention on other athletes who needed guidance. Alex felt the absence of his coach's attention like a physical ache, performing poorly without the motivation of those blue eyes watching his every move. When practice ended and the team began to disperse, Alex lingered, hoping for one of their now customary private sessions. Coach Ryan was gathering equipment, deliberately not looking in his direction. "Coach," Alex finally approached, his voice uncertain. "Should I set up the hurdles for some extra work?" Coach Ryan straightened, meeting Alex's eyes with an unreadable expression. "Not today, Mitchell. I have a meeting with the athletic director." He hesitated, then added, "You're making good progress. Sometimes it's important to rest and let the body integrate what it's learned." The dismissal stung more than Alex wanted to admit. He nodded and turned to leave, confusion and disappointment warring in his chest. As he reached the edge of the track, Coach Ryan's voice stopped him. "Alex." It was the first time he'd used his first name instead of his last. "Tomorrow. Come early before the team practice. 6 a.m. Hope flared in Alex's chest as he nodded and continued toward the locker room. The use of his first name felt significant, a small crack in the professional facade that had always defined their relationship. That night, Alex set 2 alarms to ensure he wouldn't oversleep, laying out his practice clothes before going to bed. The next morning, the school was eerily quiet when Alex arrived at 5:55 a.m. The rising sun cast long shadows across the track as he began his warm-up routine, hyper-aware of every sound that might signal Coach Ryan's arrival. At exactly 6, he heard the metal clang of the gate opening and turned to see his coach walking toward him, carrying a duffel bag over one shoulder. "Good morning," Coach Ryan said, his voice echoing slightly in the empty stadium. "I appreciate the punctuality." He set down his bag and pulled out a tablet. "I want to show you something." Alex moved closer, curious. On the tablet was video footage of Olympic hurdlers, Their movements slowed down to show every nuance of technique. Watch their hips, coach instructed, standing close enough that their shoulders touched. See how the rotation starts before they even leave the ground. The video played in slow motion, highlighting exactly what coach had been trying to teach him for weeks. I think I understand better now, Alex said, genuinely interested in the technical aspects despite the distraction of Coach Ryan's proximity. Can I try? Coach nodded, putting the tablet away and helping Alex set up 3 hurdles in succession. Remember what you saw. Feel the movement begin before you jump. He positioned himself at the finish line, giving Alex space to approach the hurdles with full speed. Alex took a deep breath, visualizing the technique he'd just observed. He started his approach, focusing on initiating the hip rotation earlier than he had been. As he cleared each hurdle, he could feel the difference: smoother, faster, more efficient. When he crossed the finish line, Coach Ryan was smiling, a genuine expression of pride that made Alex's chest tighten. "That was excellent," Coach said, stepping forward to clap him on the shoulder. "You're a quick study when you can visualize the technique." His hand remained on Alex's shoulder, the touch burning through the thin fabric of his practice shirt. "How did it feel?" "Good," Alex managed, acutely aware of how close they were standing, how empty the stadium was around them. "Different. Better." Coach Ryan nodded, his hand finally dropping from Alex's shoulder. "Sometimes seeing is better than being told. And sometimes," he paused, something flickering in his eyes, "sometimes hands-on guidance is what makes the difference." There was a weight to his words that made Alex's heart race. "Let's try again, but this time I want you to focus on maintaining your speed between hurdles." Many athletes slowed down unconsciously. They continued working for nearly an hour, Coach Ryan alternating between observing from a distance and providing hands-on corrections. Each time his hands came to rest on Alex's body, adjusting an arm position, correcting his posture, guiding his hip rotation, the touch lingered slightly longer than necessary. By the time the rest of the team began arriving for regular practice, Alex was flushed not just from exertion, but from the accumulation of those moments, the building tension that neither of them acknowledged directly. As the days passed, their early morning sessions became routine. Alex's performance improved dramatically, his times dropping to competitive levels that put him in contention for regional championships. But more significant was the evolving relationship between them, built in those quiet morning hours when they were alone on the track. Coach Ryan began sharing stories from his own competitive days, the injuries that had ended his Olympic dreams, the transition to coaching that had saved him from depression. Alex, in turn, opened up about his struggles to live up to his parents' athletic legacy, his uncertainty about his future, his feeling of never quite fitting in with his peers. "You're different from them," Coach Ryan told him during one such conversation, sitting beside Alex on the bleachers after a particularly grueling session. "You have a depth they lack, an awareness." His eyes held Alex's, searching. "That's rare in someone your age." The compliment warmed Alex more than any praise about his athletic performance ever had. "I've always felt different," he admitted, the words coming easier in the liminal space of early morning. "Never quite connected to what everyone else seems to care about." Coach Ryan nodded, understanding in his eyes. "I know that feeling well." He hesitated, then added quietly, "It can be lonely." The simple acknowledgement of loneliness, something Alex had felt but never named, created a bridge between them. In that moment, the age difference, the coach-athlete dynamic, seemed to fade, leaving just two people recognizing something familiar in each other. The regional meet arrived on a perfect spring Saturday, the kind of clear, mild day that seemed designed for breaking records. Alex's parents sat in the stands, his father filming with a camera that had captured every significant athletic moment of Alex's life. Coach Ryan gathered the team for a final pep talk, his eyes briefly meeting Alex's with a look that conveyed everything they couldn't say aloud. "Remember your training," was all he said to Alex directly, his hand squeezing Alex's shoulder firmly before he moved on to encourage other team members. When Alex's event was called, he took his place at the starting blocks, a new confidence in his posture. The starter's pistol fired, and Alex exploded forward, all the technical adjustments they'd worked on becoming fluid, instinctive movements. He cleared the first hurdle perfectly, then the second, gaining momentum as he found his rhythm. From the corner of his eye, he could see Coach Ryan pacing alongside the track, his intensity focused entirely on Alex's performance. As he cleared the final hurdle and lunged for the finish line, Alex knew he'd run the race of his life. The time confirmed it, a personal best by nearly half a second, good enough for second place in qualification for the state championships. His teammates surrounded him, offering high fives and congratulations, but Alex's eyes sought out Coach Ryan, needing to share this moment with the person who had made it possible. Coach waited until the team's celebration subsided before approaching. "Excellent execution," he said, his professional tone belied by the pride shining in his eyes. "Your hip rotation was perfect." The words were for anyone who might overhear, but the look they exchanged held deeper meaning. Later, after the medal ceremony and team photos, Alex found himself alone in the equipment room, putting away hurdles as part of his team responsibilities. The door opened behind him, and he turned to find Coach Ryan standing there, still in his school-branded polo and khakis. "I wanted to congratulate you properly," Coach said, closing the door behind him. "What you accomplished today was the result of extraordinary dedication." "I had extraordinary coaching," Alex replied, his voice steadier than he expected given the sudden hammering of his heart. Coach Ryan moved closer, stopping just within arm's reach. "The coaching only works when the athlete is receptive." His eyes searched Alex's face. "And you've been exceptionally receptive." The double meaning hung in the air between them, acknowledged for the first time. Alex swallowed hard, gathering his courage. "The hands-on approach made all the difference," he said, deliberately echoing Coach's words from weeks earlier. Something changed in Coach Ryan's expression, a barrier lowering, a decision being made. "Alex," he said softly, "what's happening here? It's complicated." "I know." Alex nodded, not backing away. "I've thought about it a lot." "Have you?" Coach's voice held a note of surprise. "Because there are implications I'm not sure you've considered. Professional boundaries, age differences, community perceptions." "I've considered all of it," Alex insisted, taking a small step forward, eliminating more of the space between them. "I know what I feel. And I think you feel it too." Coach Ryan ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration or conflict that Alex had never seen from him before. "What I feel isn't the point. I have a responsibility as your coach, as an adult in a position of authority. To guide me," Alex finished for him. "To help me discover my potential. Isn't that what you've been doing?" The question hung between them, loaded with meaning. Coach Ryan's eyes darkened slightly. "This isn't what I intended when I started working with you. But it's where we are," Alex said simply. "Unless I'm misreading everything." For a long moment, Coach Ryan was silent, his internal struggle visible in the tension of his jaw, the way his hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and controlled. "You're not misreading. But that doesn't make it simple." The admission sent a surge of validation through Alex. He hadn't imagined the connection, the tension, the meaning behind those lingering touches. "I don't need simple," he said. "I just need honest." Coach Ryan exhaled slowly, seeming to come to a decision. "After state championships, I'm resigning from my position here. I've already discussed it with the athletic director. I've been offered a college coaching position that starts this summer." The news hit Alex like a physical blow. "You're leaving? Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I needed to maintain professional boundaries," Coach Ryan answered, a hint of irony in his tone given their current conversation. "And because I didn't want it to affect your performance at regionals." "What about state? Are you still coaching me for that?" Alex asked, trying to process this unexpected development. "Of course. I wouldn't leave before finishing what we started." Coach paused, then added more softly. "Your success at state could open doors for you. College scholarships, opportunities one never had at your age." Alex nodded, understanding the importance but still struggling with the revelation. "And after you leave, what happens to?" He gestured between them, unable to name what hadn't yet been defined. Coach Ryan's expression softened. "That depends on a lot of factors. But without the coach-athlete dynamic, certain complications would be removed." The implication was clear, a possibility existed, but not while their current roles remained in place. It was both a rejection and a promise, a boundary and an invitation to cross it later, under different circumstances. "So for now?" Alex asked, needing clarity. "For now, I'm your coach. You're my athlete. We focus on preparing you for state championships." Coach Ryan's voice was firm, but his eyes held warmth that softened the declaration. What comes after that? We can discuss when appropriate boundaries exist. It wasn't everything Alex wanted in that moment, but it was honest. It acknowledged what had grown between them while respecting the complexities of their situation. Most importantly, it offered a future possibility that hadn't existed minutes before. I can work with that, Alex said finally, extending his hand as if to seal the agreement. Coach Ryan hesitated before taking it, his grip firm and warm. The handshake lasted longer than convention dictated, their eyes holding a conversation their words couldn't yet have. When they finally released, something had shifted between them, a mutual understanding, a promise deferred but not denied. The 4 weeks leading to state championships took on a new intensity. Their early morning sessions continued, but with a clearer purpose and more defined boundaries. Coach Ryan was still hands-on with his technique corrections, but the touches were more clinical, less lingering. What they lost in physical connection, however, they gained in emotional depth. Their conversations expanded beyond track and school to books, music, philosophies, the foundations of a relationship that could exist outside the constraints of their current roles. At state championships, Alex performed beyond everyone's expectations, including his own. He placed third overall, earning an athletic scholarship offer from Coach Ryan's future employer, a coincidence that felt like fate. As they celebrated with the team, their public interactions remained appropriately professional, but a single exchanged glance held the weight of everything still unspoken between them. 2 months later, after graduation and Coach Ryan's departure from Riverdale High, Alex received a text message. "Coffee tomorrow? There's a new place near campus I think you'd like." It was signed simply Ryan, the absence of Coach signifying the change in their relationship status. Their first meeting as something other than coach and athlete was awkward at first, both of them navigating unfamiliar territory. But as they talked about Alex's upcoming freshman year, about Ryan's new position, about all the things they hadn't been able to discuss freely before, the connection that had formed on the track reasserted itself in this new context. "I missed your guidance," Alex admitted as their conversation deepened. "Not just with hurdles." Ryan smiled, the expression more relaxed than Alex had ever seen during their time at Riverdale. "I missed giving it. But this is better, being able to talk without watching every word, every gesture." As they left the coffee shop, Ryan's hand brushed against Alex's, their fingers briefly intertwining before separating. A small touch laden with promise, the beginning of something that had been building for months. No longer defined by the boundaries of coach and athlete, they were free to explore what had always existed beneath the surface. A connection built on mutual respect, shared understanding, and an attraction that had withstood the complexities of their initial meeting. Their story wasn't simple. It had begun in the complicated space of power dynamics and professional responsibilities, but it evolved into something authentic, a relationship founded on patience, respect for appropriate boundaries, and the recognition of something rare and worth waiting for. What had started with hands on hips during technical corrections had transformed into something much more meaningful. Two people who had found in each other something they hadn't known they were seeking. Total _char_count, 18,736.